the eyes that changed everything. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Milanos, one of downtown's most exclusive restaurants. Daniel Crawford sat alone at his usual corner table, a half-finished plate of gourmet pasta growing cold before him. The elegant dining room buzzed with the quiet conversations of business lunches and social gatherings, but Daniel barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, lost in the endless cycle of board meetings, quarterly reports, and corporate decisions that filled his days. At 35, Daniel had built Crawford Industries into an empire that most people could only dream of. His suits were tailored, his watch was Swiss, and his reputation was spotless. Yet sitting in this restaurant where a single meal cost more than many people earned in a day, he felt utterly empty. Success, he had learned, was a cold companion when you had no one to share it with. He pushed the expensive food around his plate with little interest, his thoughts drifting to the empty penthouse apartment that awaited him. Another evening of silence. Another night of wondering if this was all there was to life. The waiter had already asked twice if everything was satisfactory, and Daniel had nodded absently both times, though he could barely taste what he was eating. "Excuse me, sir." The small voice was so quiet that Daniel almost missed it over the ambient noise of the restaurant. He looked up to see two little girls standing beside his table, their tiny hands clasped together nervously. They appeared to be twins, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, with golden curls that caught the afternoon light and matching white dresses that had seen better days. The fabric was clean but worn, clearly loved and carefully maintained despite obvious age. "May we have your leftovers, please?" one of the girls asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel blinked, certain he had misheard. In all his years of dining at exclusive establishments, nothing like this had ever happened. He glanced around the restaurant, expecting to see a parent or guardian nearby, but the girls appeared to be alone. The other diners continued their conversations, seemingly unaware of the unusual request. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Daniel asked gently, setting down his fork. The second twin stepped slightly forward, finding a bit more courage. "We asked if we could have your leftovers. You're not eating them, and we're really hungry." It was then that Daniel truly looked into their eyes, and what he saw there stopped his heart. These weren't the eyes of children playing a game or pulling a prank. They held a depth of hunger and quiet desperation that no child should ever know. These little girls were genuinely starving, and they had somehow found the courage to approach a stranger in an upscale restaurant to ask for food. "Where are your parents?" Daniel asked, his voice soft with concern. The first twin looked down at her worn shoes. "Our mama is looking for work. She told us to wait outside, but we got so hungry, and we saw you through the window. You looked kind." Daniel's chest tightened. He had been so lost in his own problems, his own loneliness, that he had forgotten there were people in the world facing real hardship. These beautiful children, with their careful manners and brave hearts, were living a reality he could barely comprehend. "Of course," he said immediately, pushing his barely touched plate toward them. "Please, take whatever you'd like." But as he watched them eye the expensive pasta with obvious hunger, Daniel realized how inadequate his offer was. These children needed more than leftovers. They needed a real meal, and probably much more than that. "Actually," Daniel said, standing from his chair, "would you girls like to sit down and order something fresh? Something just for you?" The twins exchanged glances, their eyes wide with disbelief. The bolder of the two shook her head quickly. "We don't have any money, sir. We just wanted the food you weren't going to eat." Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, a warmth spreading where coldness had lived for so long. "You don't need money. I'd like to buy you lunch. What are your names?" "I'm Lily," said the first twin shyly. "And I'm Rose," added the second, her confidence growing slightly. "Lily and Rose," Daniel repeated, smiling for the first time in weeks. "Those are beautiful names. I'm Daniel. Now, let's get you both seated and see what sounds good to eat." The waiter approached with obvious confusion, but Daniel's firm request for a children's menu and 2 more place settings quickly resolved any hesitation. As the twins settled into chairs that were clearly too large for them, their eyes darted around the elegant restaurant with wonder and uncertainty. "We've never, been in a place like this," Rose whispered, touching the crisp white tablecloth with reverent fingers. "It's very fancy," Lily added, her voice filled with awe. Daniel found himself seeing the restaurant through their eyes, the crystal glasses, the silver cutlery, the soft lighting that created an atmosphere of luxury he had long taken for granted. Through their wonder, he remembered what it felt like to be amazed by beautiful things. "Tell me about your mother," Daniel said gently as they waited for their food. "What kind of work is she looking for?" Lily and Rose exchanged another glance, the kind of wordless communication that twins often share. Rose answered carefully. "She used to work at a hotel, cleaning rooms, but they said they didn't need her anymore. She's been looking everywhere, but nobody wants to hire her. She tells us everything will be okay," Lily added, "but we hear her crying sometimes at night." The simple honesty of their words hit Daniel harder than any business setback ever had. Here was a family struggling with the basic necessities of life while he sat in restaurants wondering what gave his existence meaning. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had everything these children lacked, yet they possessed something he had been missing. hope, resilience, and the ability to find kindness in strangers. When their food arrived, simple grilled chicken and vegetables that they had chosen from the children's menu, Daniel watched them eat with careful, grateful bites. They had clearly been taught good manners despite their circumstances, saying please and thank you, using their napkins properly, and sharing bites with each other. "This is the best meal we've ever had," Rose said seriously, and Lily nodded in agreement. Daniel made a decision that surprised even himself. "Girls, I'd like to meet your mother. Do you think she would be willing to talk to me?" The twins looked at each other with something approaching hope. "She's waiting for us at the library," Lily said. "It's free to sit there, and it's warm. Would you like me to walk with you to meet her?" Daniel asked as they left the restaurant together. Daniel carrying containers of additional food the kitchen had prepared, he felt something he hadn't experienced. In years purpose, these children had approached him asking for leftovers, but they had given him something infinitely more valuable, a reminder of what truly mattered. Walking down the street with Lily holding one hand and Rose the other, Daniel understood that sometimes the most important business deals happen outside of boardrooms. Sometimes they happen when two brave little girls with hungry eyes teach a successful man that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the connections we make and the lives we touch. Their mother's story, when he heard it at the library, would lead to a job offer, but more than that, it would lead to a friendship that would transform all their lives. But that afternoon, walking in the sunshine with two extraordinary children, Daniel Crawford finally felt rich in the ways that truly counted.